Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Good day, welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on the developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program live on our Facebook page or live on our Facebook page. That's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. And you can also hear us live on our audio streaming at Evox PBS Receiver app. So join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
All right, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, has called for a peaceful resolution of issues in Kashmir as tensions escalate between India and Pakistan following missile strike on Pakistan-administered areas by Indian military forces. DFA spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza said that they are closely monitoring the situation between India and Pakistan as it calls for a peaceful resolution to the current issue. So we tried to get the Foreign Affairs Department to ask for any update, as well as we'd like to know the situation of our Filipinos there in Pakistan, as well as what will be the steps that the Philippine Embassy in Pakistan will take to take care of our Filipino community there, and as well as what's the coordination between the embassy or the Philippine Embassy in Islamabad regarding this, and what kind of assistance they will provide should Filipino should wish to be repatriated in the country. But unfortunately, we did not get a response as of now. But nevertheless, they sent a statement that the embassy in Islamabad has confirmed that there are no reports of Filipino casualties in the incident. And the Foreign Affairs Department advised Filipinos to take sensible precautions and continue to be vigilant. The said foreign post advised all Filipinos to avoid, this is important, non-essential travel in the areas of the following city. That's Bimber City, Azad Kashmir, the Sialkot line of control, and anywhere within 5 miles of the India-Pakistan border. So take note of those areas. And they advise Filipinos to remain indoors, monitor official announcements from local authorities, and maintain contact with their employers, the embassy, and community coordinators. And if we can recall that on April 22nd, Indian military has launched strikes in 9 locations in Pakistan in response to the terror attack in the Indian-administered town of Pahalgam in Kashmir that claimed 26 lives. All of them are tourists in the area. So New Delhi has earlier accused Islamabad of supporting the perpetrators behind the Kashmir massacre. So the United Nations as well has called for military restraint between New Delhi and Islamabad, which is described as highest in years. And also the Pakistani Prime Minister Muhammad Shehbaz Sharif had earlier described India's military operation as an act of war and warned of a retaliation. So we have to watch out for these developments as it may grow tense, because some news outlets are saying this is tantamount to actually, or the two countries are on the brink of war.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
And on that note, Front and Center will be right back after these messages.
Hatol ng bayan. Election Quick Facts.
National and local positions. Sa darating na May 12, 2025 midterm elections, ang bawat botanteng Pilipino ay pipili ng mga bagong leaders para sa national and local positions kabilang ang 12 senators, members of the House of Representatives, at party list representatives, at local government officials gaya ng governor, mayor, board members at councilors. Kasabay nito ay idiraos rin ang kauna-unahang Bangsamoro Parliament elections kung saan 25 members of the parliament at 40 party representatives ang ihahalal ng ating mga kapatid sa BARMM.
Hatol ng Bayan. Election Quick Facts.
This is a public service announcement.
Isang paalala mula sa National Telecommunications Commission, National Capital Region o NTC-NCR. Ang kanilang Oplan kontra tax scams. Binabalaan ng publiko na sakaling kayo ay makatanggap ng kakaibang text messages sa mga di kilalang numero o di kaya ay mga text messages na may kahina-hinalang mga link. Huwag pansinin, huwag pindutin, huwag i-click ang link. Ipagbigay alam agad sa NTC website ntc.gov.ph o kaya'y sumulat sa kanilang email na contratextcam@gmail.com. Sa mga panahong ito, huwag padaya, maging wais na madla. Makibahagi sa Oplan Contra Text Scam.
This is a public service announcement.
From PBS, Presidential Broadcast Service, and Radyo Pilipinas.
Stop and spot.
Paano tayo makasisigurong legit ang impormasyong nababasa natin sa social media?
Spot the source.
Hindi porke nag-viral, totoo. Kaya laging i-fact check ang impormasyong nakuha at tukuyin kung credible ba ang sources ng mga ito.
Spot the purpose.
Hindi lahat ng nakapost ay may mabuting hangarin. Ang iba ay may intensyong makapanira lamang. Kung sa inyong palagay ay hindi nakatutulong para sa mas nakararami ang impormasyon, huwag na itong i-share para hindi na magdulot pa ng gulo o pagkalito.
Spot the ownership.
Legit o edit? I-double check kung totoong nanggaling sa mga legit news providers ang impormasyon dahil baka edited lamang ito ng kung sino para magpakalat ng fake news. I-check muna ang kanilang mga official social media platforms para makasiguro.
Spot the time.
Updated ka nga ba? O baka outdated na yung balitang na i-share mo? Siguraduhin na tingnan mabuti rin ang month, day at year ng impormasyong inyong binabasa upang hindi maging sharer ng mga lumang balita.
Let's be part of the solution. We can be warriors against disinformation and misinformation.
Maging mapanuri sa lahat ng oras. A message from Presidential Communications Office, Department of Education, Commission on Higher Education, DILG, DSWD, Presidential Broadcast Service at Radyo Pilipinas.
This is a public service announcement.
Discipline is the key. Umiwas sa aksidente sa daan. Ang pagmamaneho ay may kaakibat na responsibilidad, hindi basta mapaandar lang ang sasakyan. Kilatisin ang sarili, ang kahandaan sa manibela, siguruhing inyong konsentrasyon ay hindi magagambala. Importante rin na ating laging isipin, init ng ulo ay huwag pairalin, bagkus kaligtasan ng lahat ang siyang dapat unahin. Isang mahalagang paalala mula sa Presidential Broadcast Service at Radyo Pilipinas, Radyo Publiko 738.
This is a public service announcement. From PBS, Presidential Broadcast Service at Radyo Pilipinas, Radyo Publiko 738.
Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center. So, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. yesterday in a political rally in Malolos, Bulacan, he hoped that all senatorial candidates of the Alianza para sa Bagong Pilipinas should win the midterm elections to ensure the continuity of the administration's big projects. As he courted the Bulacan electorate to vote straight for the administration-backed Senate slate. And the president expressed confidence in presenting the Alianza's senatorial bets, considering their strong will to set aside political differences to bring unity and development in the country. And the administration senatorial slate will focus on the following goals. Number one, maintain peace and order. Second, lower commodity prices. And lastly, the empower women. And to note, Bulacan is a vote-rich province with more than 2 million voters or 2 million registered voters. And this is one of the provinces that delivered Marcos to victory during the 2022 presidential election. So meanwhile, according to the Commission on Elections or COMELEC, there will be over 20 million voters expected from Generation Z, born in 1997 to 2007 for the midterm elections this year. And on the other hand, almost 26 million voters are composed of millennials and is expected to participate in the election. So having said that, we have a political analyst to discuss further and provide us an analysis for the upcoming midterm election. So welcome to the program, Attorney Ed Chico. This is Jerome Toledo of Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Thank you, Jerome, for inviting me again. Guesting in your show is pretty much like falling in love. It's lovelier the second time around.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah. And the honor is ours, Attorney Chico. Okay, so first, what's your assessment on the upcoming midterm election? So what's your fearless forecast on this midterm?
Well, I just read the recent survey that was done. So basically, those who landed in the top 8 would be a shoe-in, meaning come election time, I'm pretty sure all of them would probably be elected into office, hindi ba? The likes of Senator Bongo, the likes of Erwin Tulfo, But those between 9 and 12 is still up in the air. It basically depends on what's gonna transpire between now and election day, because you have to understand that there are still voters who can still shift their preference depending on the variables or circumstances that would unfold between now and on Monday.
Okay. So how do you see the administration senatorial slate will claim victory? Because as I can see here, let's see, on the Okta research as well as the SWS survey, 8 out of 11 Alianza senatorial candidates are included in the top 12 of those survey firms. So, how do you see the administration senatorial slate will claim their victory?
The survey has already spoken. You have to understand that surveys are not actually rigged. So survey firms wouldn't do that because they would actually lose their credibility. So every time a survey firm would actually release a result of a survey done, it is always legitimate and truly reflective of the sentiment of the public. And based on the survey, it seems to me that majority of the candidates of the administration ticket would actually make it. So I expect the Senate to be, I think, to be sympathetic to the administration and would be supportive of the legislative measures that the administration, I guess, would like to push for. And that is actually very, very crucial, because historically, the midterms elections would be an indicator of what those aspiring to become president in 2028 would have to do in order to guarantee that they would actually not just run for office, but even secure a victory.
But of course, Attorney Chico, the midterm election will, of course, we will elect 12 senators as well as hundreds of, we will, each district will elect one of their representative that will be sitting in the House of Representatives. So, okay, so the administration senatorials will be okay. So with that, having said that, so can we expect a new breed of senators this time? Aside that, the administration senators have a higher chance of taking senatorial seats.
Well, not necessarily. You have to understand that our politics is basically personality based. In the US, the party system works all the time because they have a very strong political party system, and parties in the US, like the Republicans and the Democrats, they stand on certain principles upon which any action done by the party would be based. In our country, it's so personality based that people will just basically vote for you either because you're familiar or you resonate with them or you're charismatic enough regardless of your platforms. So, which is why I say that every time there's an election, we normally go for those people who are actually familiar with us or whom we can actually relate to. And that has always been the story of the day. If you look, for example, at the candidates of the administration ticket, you will realize that a lot of them are actually familiar faces. And more importantly, there are some of them who have somehow proven their worth as, as legislators before. So it makes sense why they are actually leading in the survey right now. And at the end of the day, it also speaks of the trust and confidence probably reposed on the administration. Because if people hate this administration, then there is no reason why they would actually vote for those senators running under their ticket.
Also, Attorney Chico, there are also lots of senatorial candidates that are new to this position, and once they get elected, they will meet the system of the Senate. So, how should a newcomer senator should face the Senate?
I mean, if you run for the first time and you subsequently win, I guess you're supposed to be independent. You're supposed to be not swayed by any influences coming from all sides. You're supposed to be objective. You're supposed to be mindful of the need to actually work for the people, to making sure that the bills that you would actually propose would actually benefit and promote and even advance their interests. But that is actually very difficult to do because, as I said, we have a very weak party system, so you cannot rely on that. Our politics is personality based, so our political landscape because of that is actually very ambivalent. So if you're a newbie in the Senate or if you're a newbie in the House of Representatives, expect that there would actually be people who would try to convince you and who would actually try to somehow influence you to doing certain things which are not necessarily advancing the interests of the public, but if you do not have self-awareness, if you do not have the political will, you might find yourself being influenced by them.
Okay. So focusing now on the youth vote. So I've mentioned earlier, before I let you in, Attorney Chico. So youth voters, of course, they will participate in this midterm election. So I have the numbers here. So the number of Gen Z that will participate in this election will be over 20 million. On the other hand, millennial voters is at 26 million voters. So how powerful the youth vote in this election, Attorney Chico?
I mean, historically, they've always been very, very powerful because we have a very young population. In fact, in 2020, the median age is 25.3, which presupposes, therefore, that half of any household, the age is actually below that. So, the young votes are always, kumbaga, they're always significant in determining the outcome of any electoral process. So which is why the youth vote should be able to harness this power and be able to actually vote wisely. They should be able to utilize their idealism and they should be able to pull together their resources to make things happen. But it's actually very difficult to do because, as we all know, corruption is a culture in this country. So even young people right now are easily exposed to corruption and some corrupt activities. So it's something that's actually very, very difficult to navigate. But I'm not actually losing my hope on the young ones, particularly the youth now, who is much more woke and aware of what has been happening because of social media and other sources of information that are actually accessible to them. So information is very much readily accessible, and it allows now the young voters to be able to somehow contemplate and decide accordingly.
Okay, so do you still see the the youth sector will make a difference in this election?
Well, they will always make a difference. Remember in 1992, I remember when Miriam Defensor Santiago ran as president. Of course, as we all say, she won but lost in the counting. But part of her success, actually majority of the success, was because the young voters went out and decided to actually vote for her. And historically, that has always been the case. So it's just a matter now of making sure that the young voters are properly equipped with the right tools so that they may be able to vote wisely, so that they may be able to scrutinize things and issues, so that at the end of the day, they may be able to actually vote for the candidates who are qualified for the post they are seeking. But at the end of the day, it's always been the young voters who are the prime movers of any electoral process, because we have a very young population. So I expect the millennials and the Gen Z population to come out and vote, because unlike the young voters before, the young generation now is much more woke, as I said, is much more knowledgeable of issues, because they have access to all sources of information. And at the end of the day, they participate and critically take part in any issue of the day. So I actually expect them to come out and vote, and which is actually a good thing.
So what about the older population that is still a registered voter? So they will also make a difference, because as we know, old people tend to be, less tech savvy, if I may quote myself on that. So how the old population will contribute to the electoral process?
Of course, the older ones would still go out and vote, and that would be critical and significant too. But I'm just saying that at the end of the day, since we have a very young population, I expect actually the young voters to make a difference if they really go out and openly vote for the candidates who they think can actually work and serve the people. But at the end of the day, whether you're young or old, you need to go out and vote, because every vote matters, every vote counts. So, but in this election, since people are, we are so politically divided right now, people are easily triggered by politics. People, now more than ever, basically express their opinions on certain political issues. So I think there's a motivation for a lot of people to go out and vote. So I expect a bigger turnout this time around compared to those turnouts in previous elections.
Okay, well said. Okay, so my last question, Attorney Chico. So what lies ahead for Vice President Sara Duterte and for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.? Because still former President Rodrigo Duterte is on trial at the ICC for quote-unquote crimes against humanity. And the impeachment of the Vice President is looming. And also, Alianza senatorial candidates are in the top 12 of the survey. So, however, there are senatorial candidates from other parties that has a neutral or in the side of the vice president. So, what lies ahead for both of them?
Well, with respect to Vice President Sara Duterte, the result of the midterm election, particularly those of the senators, particularly those, with respect to Vice President Sara Duterte, the result of the midterm election is actually crucial and significant, because if most of the candidates of the administration ticket would win and become senators, then there's a possibility that the impeachment trial would proceed and that the result would actually be deleterious on her end. Why? Because at the end of the day, an impeachment proceeding is actually a numbers game. So whether we like it or not, although an impeachment court is expected to adopt certain rules of procedures with respect to admissibility of evidence, at the end of the day, every evidence presented is really dependent upon the exercise of discretion election of the senators sitting in an impeachment court. So it's definitely a numbers game. And that would be very, very crucial for her because the penalty imposed once you're impeached is perpetual disqualification to run for office, which presupposes, therefore, that even if she would lead in the survey for 2028, she cannot run because she would be barred from doing that. On the part of President Marcos, I guess there is hardly any effect at all as regards the president because number one, even if the members of the House of Representatives or the new members of the Senate would not actually belong to the party of which the president is a member, at the end of the day, historically, the members of the Senate, the senators always gravitate towards the president. So if there is an impeachment case that may be filed against President Marcos, I am confident that it will not actually fly. And I am also confident that it would actually be dismissed from the very get-go. So as regards President Marcos, this midterm election is not really so much crucial with respect to his remaining 3 years in office. And besides, in fairness to the president, his personality is such that he can actually survive any controversy, any attack, or any issue that may actually be used against him. Because that's just basically what his personality is. It's not very combative, it's not very divisive, and it actually augurs well for him. But this midterm election would be crucial to all those seeking the presidency in 2028. So let's call a spade a spade. If the rumors are true, then this midterm election would be very, very significant with respect to the political aspiration of our speaker, of VP Sara Duterte, even of Senator Raffy Tulfo, whom some people think is also eyeing the presidency. So this midterm election is really all about 2028. It hardly has any impact or effect at all on the president because the president is already done with his first 3 years, and in fairness to him, he hasn't really done anything that would somehow result into hatred against him. As I said, his personality and the things done so far have somehow shielded him from any threat that may be thrown against him. And the remaining 3 years naman is he can devote that on pursuing his projects and programs. So I'm pretty sure he would not be affected at all by this. As I said, this midterm election is really all about those seeking the presidency in 2028. The result of this would prove to be very, very crucial as regards their respective chances. As I said, with respect to VP Sara Duterte, impeachment is a numbers game. So I'm pretty sure it would be difficult for her to navigate the next 3 years if the majority of the senators elected are not sympathetic to her. With respect naman to the other candidates, it is very crucial for them to be able to utilize the result of this election insofar as determining the particular strategies that they need to employ to make themselves marketable to the public, particularly come 2028.
Okay. And of course, by 2028, it will be a predictor for the next election, which is 2031, and then and the following elections after.
Yes, but actually, I'm honestly, I hardly endorse anyone. As a political analyst, I always try to remain objective. But I'm actually rooting for Vico Soto. I hope at some point, if he continues what he's doing, at some point, he might want to run for president. I would campaign for that guy, assuming, of course, between now and that time, he would be consistent in pursuing good governance, as he has always been so far.
All right. Good governance. Okay. Well said. All right. And with that, thank you, Attorney Ed Chico, the political analyst, for joining us in the program.
Thank you so much, Jerome. You are one broadcaster whom I cannot say no to every time you would invite me. Thank you so much, Jerome, again. Right. I hope you get to see one of my shows.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In the future.
I will. My pleasure, Attorney Chico. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. Okay.
And
with that, that concludes this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with our production team and technical personnel, this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Mabuhay, love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.